Hey everyone, welcome back to XVolt Tech. Now, this idea may seem far-fetched, but weighing the options, I believe that you can use an old iPhone in place of an iPod Touch. So if you want to switch to a device like an iPod, but aren't ready for the commitment of abandoning streaming services or watching videos on your phone, then this is for you. As of recording this video, Apple stopped selling iPods about 2 years ago, marking an end to the iPod era. So why should you get an older iPhone over an iPod Touch? Well, one of the big deciding factors is the price, as it also determines how far in the past you want to go. Assuming you want to stick with the Lightning port, you're stuck to the iPod Touch 5, 6, and 7, of which the cheapest is the iPod Touch 5, as it not only is the oldest, but only gives you a maximum of 64 gigabytes of storage and iOS 9. Sticking with Lightning, with the iPhone, you have anything from the iPhone 5 to the iPhone SE, assuming a headphone jack is important to you. If not, you can go pretty much all the way up to the iPhone 7, which is probably the newest, most reasonably priced used phone. Because most of these phones are pretty old, you can get them for pretty cheap, and because Apple always cared more about the iPhones anyway, a lot of them have much better iOS support than iPod Touches ever had. A good comparison is the 128GB iPhone SE from 2016 and the 128GB iPod Touch 7th generation, which came out in 2019. Although they both have the same exact storage, the iPhone SE tends to have more features and is also cheaper than an iPod Touch 7th generation used. And also, they both support the same iOS version, so you get more bang for your buck with the SE. The only thing the iPod Touch 7th generation really has over the iPhone SE is that the 7th generation can go up to 256GB, which, if you needed that much storage, I'd probably recommend something post iPhone 7. If you are like me and you like being able to repair your tech, then this is a pretty big reason why you should use an older iPhone instead of an iPod Touch. The iPod Touch is notorious for being one of Apple's most difficult to repair devices, with the only other devices rivaling it are the AirPods and the iPads. Even then, the iPads are still pretty repairable. The easiest to remove component on an iPod Touch is the screen. However, it's adhered in just like every iPhone from the iPhone 6 onward. However, once you get into the screen and you need to replace a battery, for example, it is almost impossible to get it out, as well as the battery on iPod Touches being soldered in most cases. When it comes to iPhones, they've never really had that problem. iPhones have always been extremely repairable, except for the adhesive on iPhone 6 and over. But that's really not too big of a deal. Heating up the phone is not that hard, and once you get into the phone, battery replacement is easy. This does not apply to the newer iPhones, of course, because they're still very expensive, and also Apple's pairing component thing, but that does apply to the Touch ID phones. When it comes to variety, the iPhone has got the iPod Touch beat. There's only 7 generations of the iPod Touch, of which only 3 really matter. You could include the iPod Touch 4th generation if you want to include Lightning in there, but then you'd also have to include the iPhone 4. But the iPhone 4 is still pretty good. The iPhone 4S can go up to iOS 9, but you can also use it on iOS 6. And when it comes to color variety, for example, the iPod Touch does have quite a bit of options, especially on the 5th, 6th, and 7th generation. And due to the range of iPhones that you have as compared to the iPod Touches, there are quite a few colors of different models, especially the iPhone 5C line. You have 5 beautiful looking phones, all running iOS 10, and they're perhaps some of the most repairable iPhones ever made. As well as this, you can choose what design you want. When it comes to the iPod Touches, they've always just been based on the same design. iPod Touch 5, 6, and 7 are virtually indistinguishable from one another, and the iPod Touch 1, 2, 3, and 4 are also basically virtually indistinguishable, because they were based on other iPhone models. The 1st through 4th generations were based on the 3GS, or something like that, and the iPod Touch 5 was based off of the iPhone 5, I could assume, because they came out the same year. But the iPod Touch 7th generation still keeps that design. So those are my reasons as to why you should buy an older used iPhone over an older used iPod Touch. While this guide may not have made sense during the time that iPods were still being sold, now that the iPod age is over, I feel that an iPhone can still be a better iPod Touch than an iPod Touch. Thanks for watching.